From SBI's Executive Briefing Center in Dallas, Texas, the most watched and listened to content in B2B sales and marketing, it's the SBI Podcast with your host, Matt Shares.
Welcome to SBI TV, a weekly show dedicated to helping you make your number. Today we're going to discuss how to transition to a data-driven business to navigate the sales and marketing data mess. So why is this a problem? Because as companies leverage big data to begin to make better decisions, more informed decisions, most revenue growth leaders are facing challenges of a legacy data mess. So this can erode confidence, prevents company from being able to get to the point where data-driven insights are informing decision-making. So we're going to tackle this problem today, and I'm excited about it. My name is Matt Shares. I'm the CEO of SBI. I'm also your host, and at this moment, I might actually be the luckiest CEO in the world. Here's why. I have two revenue growth executives from Marketo. I've got Jill Rowley, the Chief Growth Officer, and Sarah Kennedy, the Chief Marketing Officer. And yes, we go way back, so we have lots of fun. Ladies, great to see you.
Great to see you too.
So if you could introduce yourselves to the audience, and then we will jump into this jam-packed data mess. So Jill, maybe I'll start with you.
Sure. I'm Jill Rowley, the Chief Growth Officer at Marketo, and my history is long in MarTech and marketing automation. I always say I'm a sales professional trapped in a marketer's body. Yep. And really one of the things I've done most recently is go from individual contributor to C-suite executive.
Yeah, and this unique role of the Chief Growth Officer, which is something that's new, that's emerging, that sort of sits in between as a peer of the sales leader and the marketing leader. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then Sarah, speaking of marketing leaders, please introduce yourself.
So Sarah Kennedy, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Marketo, and I am now 6 months into my job, and I have not had a decorated career in MarTech. I've actually spent a lot of time in travel and hospitality, but really excited to be in this space and to actually have the chance to market to the marketer is a whole new world for me.
Absolutely. All right, so if you're watching or listening out there and you don't want to miss any of the shows that SBI produces, we release a couple a week. If you're an iPhone user, just download the SBI app to have access to notifications that can keep you company while you commute, while you travel, while you work out. Search for Sales Benchmark Index in the App Store and download it to your iPhone. All right, we're going to jump into the questions. So in this first segment, we're going to get our arms around the problem. So Sarah, I'm going to start with you. What do you see as the biggest, maybe 2 or 3 problems for marketers trying to get their hands around the data challenge?
Yeah, I think the obvious one that everyone probably starts with and thinks about first is the data silos, and that's the thing that rears its ugly head the most often. It's just inconsistent data. I know I could go to any number of places to find data, and it's often not necessarily going to be aligned as a marketer across all the different channels and the different measurement tools that exist and that are out there and the 6,000 plus MarTech solutions in our space. But I think that's one, and that's a big one. I think there's a lot of awareness around that. I think some of the larger companies are probably more effectively investing to solve that. But then the second, and it actually comes first, probably is the talent piece. And that's, we've talked about this before a little bit, but just the analytical literacy of the marketing team is so fundamental and paramount to the success of that team, not because they aren't producing, maybe they don't have data silos, maybe they've broken those down, maybe they have great reporting and alignment with sales, but if they aren't data literate and can't tell a story with the strategic analytical mindset and actually show trend lines and show what's actually happening that informs what should happen next, then it's kind of all for naught. And so I think that's the second biggest challenge. And the third is probably a result of the first two, which is a lack of trust from just the executive leadership team and of sales whenever you're in the room having those conversations, because they need to see patterns of consistency and they need to see alignment and the same data set time and time again.
All right, so we're going to hit the ball over the net to Jill. So representing the sales leader, and you know what that's like. What about from the vantage point of the sales leader, Jill? What do you see?
Matt, really the issues are pretty much the same. I think the nuance of the sales data, sure, it comes down to talent and having a sales leader who is more data-driven rather than gut and instinct. That's a new muscle, right, in the sales profession. And good news is it's getting some coverage in terms of companies like SBI talking about that as an issue. And in fact, Spencer Stewart, big recruiting company, they have published reports on the data-driven sales leader. So it's good that we're seeing some thought leadership around it. I think one of the issues around sales and sales data is reps being willing to put data into the system. And I've been in the CRM space since 2000 when I was a rep at Salesforce.com. And it frightens me the reluctance still that exists at a rep, director, VP level to put data into the CRM system. And if you can't get the data into the system, then you can't analyze the data. So, like really, how can you analyze something that doesn't actually exist?
It's tough to have AI when you have no eye to produce something artificially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's just not it's a cultural thing of, is sales leadership going to require and mandate that this information gets put into the system?
Yeah. So, Sarah, on that topic, how is it impacting the CEO and the rest of the C-suite? Because the board meetings that I sit in, and we do about 2/3 of our work in private equity-backed companies, and and from entry to exit, there's always all this sort of intensity around marketing spend, intensity around data, just and people. You talked about trust.
Yeah.
That was well said. So, how do you bring the rest of the C-suite along for the ride? Because if marketing's leading and sales is catching up, to Jill's point, new muscle.
Yeah.
I look at the rest of the C-suite and they kind of have like stink eye when they're like, marketing data, marketing ROI, that's noise.
Yeah.
Advice?
Yeah, so I think number one is that there's often only one metric that matters, maybe not just one, but there's a set of metrics that matter that has to be aligned. It's got to have, me and my head of sales have to be 100% aligned on what those are, and those are the metrics that are the beginning and the end of every conversation we have. There are things that inform those or influence those or impact those that may be other marketing activities that drive toward that. But at the end of the day, if the C-level is not hearing the same story and the same metrics being measured across both of our teams, then they have a lack of confidence. And I mentioned the trust breaking. I think that confidence is what a CEO needs then to enter a board meeting as well and have that same conversation and answer those questions confidently and trust that the data that he's presenting to our leadership is accurate.
So, Jill, would you take it so far as if Sarah talked about like shared metrics? So I'm envisioning this scorecard, if you will, and in the scorecard, would the sales and marketing leader are getting paid, getting evaluated, getting performance reviewed on the exact same data?
Yeah.
Like that level of partnership?
That's the level. Yeah,
Okay.
That's the level. Yeah. It's the revenue CMO, right? And the clicks and impressions, those are so 1997, right? It's like, that is so not interesting whatsoever. It really is what is impacting pipeline and what is driving revenue, and looking at things like velocity and conversion rates. Those are the metrics that sound like sales metrics, but those are marketing metrics at Marketo.
So as we transition out of this first segment, we're going to jump into how we solve the problem. But I think a couple things I would have people take away. If you were thinking about sort of core metrics in the business, most folks that we see are not paying attention to things like acquisition cost and lifetime value by product line, market segment, and sales channel. That would be an example of a metric that if I was a sales leader and Sarah was the marketing leader and Jill was the CEO, she would be asking us to present that to you to say, guys, listen, I really don't care, but I want to go after the right customers at the lowest acquisition cost who have the highest propensity to stay with us a long time. Pretty basic capital efficient metrics. Think through those core metrics. Those are a couple that I would tell you we recommend, and there are others. But the partnership component, as opposed to alignment, which Jill mentioned, would be another piece of advice. So we're now going to get into solving the problem. So I'll start, Jill, with you first, and then we'll go to Sarah. How does sales and marketing work together to now tackle this? So we've got the problem statement. Everybody agrees data's a mess. Everybody agrees the tech stack's got too much in it. How do we unpack it and get to a sense of clarity where people feel like they've got the right data at the right time in the right manner?
Yeah. So we're actually seeing a movement in the MarTech space that actually spans across sales and customer success. So I actually think not in silos, MarTech, sales tech, customer success tech, or marketing ops, sales ops, customer success ops, and partner ops. Don't forget about that. Yeah. Like, what is the rev ops and what is your rev tech stack? And the whole customer data platform, CDP movement, is real. And it is just in the nascent stages. It's actually right about where marketing automation was back in 2011. And we're seeing companies look at how do we get a repository, whether it's built on Hadoop or MongoDB, where we have this data steward, this data standard, and that we're bringing data in from all these disparate systems and identifying like identity around that data. So it's cross-functional. And that's the only way to solve the divide, that you will, is make this a cross-functional initiative.
And can I also add to that? Actually, as you were talking, I'm laughing, thinking of the first few months, I think Jill and I were on the job. She and I kept looking at each other going, do you have access to this data? Do you have access to that? Why is it so difficult to get our hands on the same data set that she and I both know we need? And so we were the champions of establishing a data governance council. And so that's in progress, but it's when she and I are the ones that are coming up with that ask, because we're so desperate, I think, to just have alignment and have the right people in the room. I think that just speaks to the need, but also the urgency and then the priority that's placed on these two roles and these disciplines in driving toward that across an organization.
So that's interesting. The term revenue ops, it's a couple months ago I was leading a session with a group of CEOs, and I was talking to them about this concept around revenue enablement. And I said, if you're looking at your organization and you have sales enablement, I said that's 2007, right? It's revenue enablement. Why? Because you have a customer life cycle that's in much more of an OpEx mentality where you have to earn it every day, because people have optionality, which is why everybody's investing in customer success to mitigate churn. My point of saying that was as the light bulbs were going on relative to revenue enablement, where does the deal desk sit? What data do we use to know where we're winning, why we're winning? You guys articulated that via revenue operations. So let's stay on that, and I guess, Sarah, I would start with you. If you wanted to break that down into sort of bite-sized steps, you talked about the Data Governance Council, which I love, so that seems like sort of a step one. Are there 2 or 3 others that you would recommend to the audience as they make their journey into clarifying the data spaghetti plate?
Yeah, I think, and you know, it could be called many different things. I think we went down this council path because I think we just needed our hands on more data sets. Like, we didn't know what all the paths were even to get access to certain questions we were asking as we were getting ramped up in the business. And I think they're all there. It's just finding all the right people to bring together to have those discussions. And it could be in any form. It doesn't need to be a council necessarily, but it could be a lunch and learn that people just bringing the right people into the room to have the discussions on all the systems across the board where that data could be stored. So that is one. I do think, I kind of even, again, I take it back to talent. I think you got to have the right people. In my world in marketing ops, if I don't have the right people who can go in and not just, it's not about even, I mentioned analytical literacy, but it's not even just that. It's actually people who run to the fire, who can problem solve and who know how to almost be a detective in a sense across a business to identify where there are issues or challenges and how to resolve those. And you need those across both, if you have a marketing ops and a sales ops team or a combined rev ops group, either way, you need people like that are leading these initiatives. And then I would say, you know, for us, I mean, just using our own example, we have spent many months looking at our current CRM just data model and how that's structured and if it's structured in the right way for 2018 and really 2020. And so we're building toward the future, and we're having to do some painful infrastructure, just change management across our business right now that will be the foundation for where we head next. But it then is what on top of that, and really in parallel, but also on top, and that's a 6 to 9 month effort, right? For at least a company of our size. But when you look at what needs to happen then in your engagement platform and where that needs to head as well, you've got to have a parallel effort, because the way that data syncs together is mission critical. Even if you get it right in your foundation and you don't actually make the same changes in your MA platform, whatever that may be, then you're going to miss out on the opportunity to actually attribute revenue in a better and more effective way. And so for us, we're right now looking at that with our own instance, and we're working through that process. But then the underpinning of all of it is communication and collaboration. And so it is making sure the executive team is in the loop on those projects, and we do reporting on that on a weekly basis with the ELT. They're involved in all of those initiatives just to get the data models right and the synchronization right. And there has to be that awareness, or else you won't get the support you need to execute on it.
So then if I'm watching this show, Jill, I say, okay, I know I need some technology.
Yes.
You mentioned a MongoDB or Hadoop. What are the other, what do I have to have to be able to make the journey to get to what Sarah articulated?
Yeah, well, if you're a small company, you can't afford bigger solutions that more of those enterprise customers can. Yeah. So you might actually be just working with your Salesforce automation, your CRM system, and your marketing automation system.
Yep.
And really the key is just ensuring that those two are connected and synchronized in a way that the same data sits in both systems. And that on top of your marketing automation system that you've got great analytics and reporting capabilities so that you can really get the information from that data that you have. So if you're a small business, you might not be able to afford the emerging customer data platform or building your own custom data warehouse or a data lake. So those are things, though, that you want to be looking at. And with this space, the CDP space, building and emerging and building and growing, there are some lighter solutions that might be okay at this point for a small business.
Okay. Very helpful. So then, Sarah, assuming I can do what Jill articulated, to say, okay, just keep it basic, how do I then start to leverage the insights to move to data-driven insights to say, okay, this is working and I'm making like better fact-based decisions?
Yeah, I think it's, so I'll give you an example of, again, our team. I think it is constant and obsessive, and I mean obsessive in a good way. I usually use that word. If you're obsessed, that means you're passionate. So you have to have people who are passionate about that and about getting smarter. And so for me, it is, with my team, it's looking at weekly dialogue around what's working, what's not. And it can be informal. I think that's the thing. It doesn't have to be this fancy, beautiful process that's well documented on day one. You're going to screw it up in some step of the process, and that's okay. It's all about starting to have the dialogue, bringing data to the discussion, and being investigators and detectives of that data together, because more minds in the room just make any team in any room smarter. And so that's where I think it's just putting the right data in front of them in that group on a consistent basis with the aim to get better, not to reflect and spend all of your time talking about what happened in the past. You've got to move quickly to how do we use this to then get smarter and make better decisions next.
Yep. So more of a mistakes of velocity as opposed to mistakes of analysis.
That's right.
That's right. Let's go.
Don't glorify or stare at the problem for too long.
Okay. So then, same question, Jill, to you. How should sales, if I'm sort of going level 1, level 2, level 3, so I'm on my journey, how should sales start to leverage the data and make sense of it to once again make better decisions?
Yeah, so advanced analytics is creeping into the sales world, and a lot of sales leaders don't feel they have the analytical power in their organization with the ability to look at that data, and not just from a sales lens, but how is product and marketing and customer success and the partner ecosystem influencing that sales revenue growth that they're held accountable for. So it is, again, these are a lot of the same issues in terms of talent, and I would say rigor around making data a requirement and having compensation somewhat tied to your data cleanliness. And look, I'm thinking specific examples where I go into the Salesforce system and the data is not there. And we just had a QBR, partner QBR, and they said the data's in there.
Right.
And I go in, I'm like, the data's not effing in there. Okay, so I screenshot it and I'm like, the data's not here. So we can't make these decisions if the data's not in here. And so I'm the squeaky wheel, right? It's very.
I would have guessed.
So Sarah was being very humble about the council because I identified the issue, she's solving it, right? So that's the great thing about my world is I can identify things and then someone else has to actually like get it done.
Yes. Just wait, one day I'll be coming back to you to ask for those favors.
And I'll be happy to do favors. Happy to do them. But it's this like, guys, if we don't have it, and if we're not using this data in our QBRs, right? For example, hashtag never sell alone is a mentality within our organization. You always want to bring a partner in on an opportunity. Well, then why do I go in Salesforce and there's not partners associated to opportunities? And why in our QBRs, when we're talking about pipeline review, why are there not partner discussions? What partners are we using? Which partners are leading to higher customer lifetime value of our customers? Like if the data's not getting in the system, we can't make decisions based on it. And so it's just that constant reminder, if the data's not in there, we can't make these decisions.
Got it. All right. So last question to you both. You can even answer this in unison. What's the size of the prize? Like if I'm watching this and I go, okay, I got it. I got a spaghetti plate. It's a mess. What do I get? Like, what's this worth? Can you quantify it?
Here's what I would say. It's no perfect science to this, but there is a little bit in our world. And what I would suggest, if you're a small business that's even taking some of these marginal steps, I think you can get 1.5 times return on your investment than what you're getting today if you move toward this direction. And I think you'll see it progress over time. I'm aiming to more than double what ours is with where we're headed. And so I think there's almost endless opportunity. And I'd be curious if Jill will say that it's endless, because it could be unlimited. I don't think we actually know what all the potential is there, because we're just barely scratching the surface. But I can tell you those are my targets, and they're aggressive, but they are absolutely achievable.
Okay.
Yeah, it will have a significant impact on your ability to grow fast.
Yeah.
And there's actually research out there that shows that advanced analytics and data-informed, maybe not data-driven, but data-informed organizations have higher productivity. Yeah. So it is, the size of the prize is your job.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
It's your job.
Yeah.
And we even, we're looking at special initiatives to fund for second half of 2018. And if you didn't bring data, you don't get funding.
That's right.
Yeah.
Literally.
Bring data or go home.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and just so everybody knows, just because we're a benchmarking firm, I didn't lead the witness on that. So that was their raw answer. But ladies, great to see you both.
You too.
You guys are doing market moving work.
Thanks, Matt.
And pleasure to host you. So continued success.
Thanks.
And to our audience for tuning in, hopefully you got some value out of the show. I know I certainly did by having Jill and Sarah here. So thank you for your continued support. That's it for today, as always. Until next time, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on the studio, SBI's Executive Briefing Center, our team, or to schedule a workshop, please visit salesbenchmarkindex.com.